Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to, well, cut through all the noise. We take a stack of sources and pull out the key insights, basically giving you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
Hmm.
And today, we're doing a deep dive into some surprisingly simple but really impactful ideas about money and wealth. It comes from a pretty popular finance personality.
Right. And the core promise is, well, it's bold, isn't it? 5 basic rules.
Mm-hmm.
Follow them consistently. And the claim is you can build significant wealth like 100% of the time over, say, 10 to 15 years.
Exactly, 100%. It sounds almost too good to be true.
Well, what's really interesting, I think, is how they're presented. They're not some, secret formula or a complex strategy. The source argues they're just common sense.
Common sense,
Yeah.
which the source says is so rare now it's like a superpower.
Precisely. So we're going to look at how these principles, which seem pretty straightforward on the face of it, actually challenge a lot of common ideas about money and even life itself.
Okay, so we'll break down these 5 rules, get into the sort of philosophy behind them, and look at some really vivid examples and stories that make them stick.
Yeah. Hopefully by the end, you'll have a much clearer picture of what it all means for, your own financial path.
Right, let's dig in. So before we even get to rule number 1, there's this really crucial starting point the source makes. It kind of frames everything else. Money itself, it won't make you happy. That's the big headline.
Okay. We hear that a lot, but what's the angle here?
The angle is that money amplifies who you already are. So if you're kind of miserable deep down and then you get rich...
You just become lots of miserable. I think that's the quote.
That's the quote, yeah. Lots of miserable. Or if you're, a bit of a jerk.
You become a big jerk.
Exactly. But, and here's the flip side, if you're naturally generous...
Then that generosity just goes into overdrive.
Yeah.
You could become a real philanthropist.
Right, a philanthropist.
That really sets the stage, doesn't it? It ties financial success directly to, your character.
Yeah.
Your intentions.
Yeah, it operates from this really clear cause and effect view of the world. What you plant, you will harvest.
There's that very direct line, too. Something like, if you plant stupid.
You're going to get a crop of desperate.
Oof. Yeah. It's a pretty blunt reminder that our habits, our daily choices, they're what really build our future, financially and, well, otherwise, too.
Okay, so that leads us straight into rule number 1. It's all about taking control right away, getting on a budget.
Right. And the source is really specific about this.
Yeah.
It's not just like keeping track in your head.
No way. It has to be written down on paper or, digitally, but planned out on purpose before the month starts. Every single month.
That on purpose bit is key.
And the framing they use, I thought this was powerful. Think of managing your money as managing you incorporated.
Yeah. Like you're the CEO of your own finances.
Exactly. And then the killer question, would you fire you from that job?
That's a good one. It shifts the whole perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From just numbers to, leadership.
Yeah.
Financial leadership of yourself.
Right.
And the source really hammers the intentionality of a written budget. It's not about being naturally good or bad with money. It's a conscious choice. You decide to do it.
Yeah, there's an anecdote in there about an employee who just resisted change, and the point was budgeting is a decision you make today, right now. Doesn't matter what you did yesterday.
And they even give a practical tool, right, for folks wondering where to start.
They do. They mention a free online budget tool, everydollar.com.
Everydollar.com. Okay, so make a plan, write it down, be intentional. That's rule 1.
Got it. So once you've got that control with the written budget, rule number 2 dives right into something a lot of us deal with, getting out of debt.
Yeah, and the source doesn't mince words here. They pull out that old proverb.
The borrower is slave to the lender.
Exactly. That idea of debt as, slavery, basically, is totally central to this whole approach.
How so?
Well, your income, right? That's your number 1 wealth-building tool, according to the source. But debt just ties it up, shackles it, stops it from working for you.
Okay, makes sense.
And they use that car payment example, which is pretty staggering. The average U.S. car payment is what, around $499?
Yeah, about $500 a month.
Okay, so take that $500.
Yeah.
If you invested it instead, say from age 30 to 70, in just a decent growth stock mutual fund, you could end up with, wait for it, $5.6 million.
Wow, $5.6 million from just a car payment.
Yeah. So that car payment, the source argues, is not making you rich. It's making the bank, the lender, rich.
And they really go after the common excuses people make, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Things like, oh, you'll always have a car payment, or, YOLO, you only live once.
Right, YOLO. They even connect that to being a fool in Proverbs, which is pretty harsh.
It is, and this really challenges people, especially today. I mean, living totally debt-free, no car loan, maybe even no mortgage eventually. It seems almost impossible for a lot of people.
So how does the source tackle that feeling, that belief that it's just how things are?
Again, it comes back to a decision, a really firm one. You have to decide you're not borrowing anymore, period.
Decide.
They use that term, plusectomy.
Plusectomy, like cutting up the plus.
Exactly. Get rid of the credit cards, cut them up. The speaker even shares, their own story. Haven't had a credit card in 30 years.
30 years. Wow. Okay, but what about, like, booking hotels, renting cars?
Debit card. The argument is a debit card does pretty much everything your, quote, stupid credit card will do.
Right.
And the whole points thing, airline miles.
Yeah.
The source basically says millionaires don't build wealth chasing airline miles. It's a distraction. The main message is you're in charge of your life, not the economy, not who's president, you.
Okay. Take control. Make a decision. Ditch the debt. Powerful stuff. Now, this next rule, Rule 3. It might seem a bit out of left field when we're talking money.
Ah, yes. Relationships.
Right. Be really intentional, really careful about fostering high-quality relationships. The source is adamant. There's a massive correlation between people who build wealth and who they hang out with.
The quote is pretty blunt. You become who you hang around with.
So how does that actually work? How do friends impact your bank account?
Well, the source argues it's about shared habits and mindset. You start talking like them, thinking like them. You read what they read, or maybe more importantly, what they don't read.
Like, if your friends just watch reality TV all day and never crack a book.
That's a big indicator. According to the source, they bring up that Charlie Tremendous Jones quote.
Oh, yeah, the one about 5 years from now.
You'll be the same person, except for the books you read and the people you meet. And they also quote the Bible. Evil company corrupts good habits.
So it's about the influence, the shared environment.
Exactly. And there's even a study mentioned. Over 10 years, your income tends to end up within like 10–20% of the average income of your 10 closest friends.
Wait, really? 10–20%? That's specific.
Yeah, it is. It suggests those shared habits, the conversations, the expectations. They really do shape your financial reality.
Yeah.
But the source is careful to say, look, this isn't about being a snob.
Right, not about looking down on people.
No, it's about conscious choice. Being intentional about who influences you.
Okay. And they use some pretty memorable parenting stories to illustrate this.
Oh, yeah. It's like you wouldn't let your kid hang out with, juvenile delinquents or weed heads, as the source puts it. Apply that same protective instinct to your own adult associations, even dating.
The story about the rules for his daughter's boyfriend.
Hilarious, right? Honk the horn, come talk to dad. Dad happens to be cleaning his gun.
Yeah, a bit much maybe, but the point.
The point is, those intentional boundaries, those high standards, led the daughters to pick, quote, studs for husbands. Good guys. Solid choices. It shows that these deliberate choices about who's in your circle have real long-term consequences, financial ones included.
Okay, so budget, get out of debt, choose your relationships wisely. That brings us to Rule 4. Back to more familiar territory. Save and invest.
Right. And again, they frame it with this ancient wisdom. In the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil.
Choice food and oil, meaning wealth back then.
Exactly. It meant you were prepared. You had resources. So the translation is simple. Wise people save money.
And the contrast.
A foolish man devours all he has. So, yeah, if you spend everything you make, the source just called you a fool. Pretty direct.
Very direct.
Yep.
So why save? What are the main reasons given?
Two big ones. First, emergencies. Because, it's going to rain, life happens, car wrecks, job losses, unexpected bills. You need a buffer.
Makes sense. An emergency fund.
Exactly. And second, a longer-term goal. To retire with dignity.
Retire with dignity. That's a phrase that resonates. But here's where the source pushes back hard on, societal norms, right? Especially about retirement.
Oh, yeah. Relying on the government, on Social Security for your retirement. The source calls that a dumb idea.
A dumb idea. Wow.
The quote is something like, they're not coming on a white horse to save your financial future.
So again, it's back to personal responsibility, self-reliance.
Absolutely. It circles back to that theme we keep seeing. The speaker talks about their own experience, made money under Democrats, lost money under Democrats, made money under Republicans, lost money under Republicans.
Right. The point being,
elections don't dictate your personal financial destiny. You do. Politicians, in this view, are just kind of Extracting like a tick.
Extracting like a tick. Okay, that's a visual. So don't rely on others. Save for emergencies. Save to retire with dignity. Got it.
Oh, it's rule 4.
All right, final rule. Rule 5. And this one. This one feels almost counterintuitive if your goal is just piling up money. Be generous.
Yeah, it seems paradoxical, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the source insists it's crucial. And it's not just about, like, writing checks. It's a spirit of cheerfulness, of being outward focused.
So what does a generous person look like, according to this?
They're described as, well, more attractive. Not necessarily physically, but their demeanor. They smile more. They're not grouchy, not self-absorbed. They're the person who holds the door, who helps you pick up your dropped groceries in the parking lot.
It's a character trait, then.
Definitely. And it links right back to that very first idea we talked about.
Yeah.
Money amplifies who you are.
Oh, okay. So if you cultivate generosity...
Money just gives you more capacity for it. The source uses tipping as a really practical example. Leave big tips. Even if the service wasn't, like, absolutely perfect.
Right. They mentioned the valet parking example. Guy's parking your $130,000 car in the pouring rain.
He deserves more than $3. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's that funny code the speaker has. If someone says they're doing better than I deserve...
That's the secret handshake. It means they're working the plan, getting out of debt, and the instruction is double their tip.
Okay. It's about finding ways, big and small.
Exactly. And the source really believes in the power of this. They say generosity changes everything in your life. It changes your family tree. It impacts literally everyone with your last name that follows you. It's about legacy.
That's a huge claim. Legacy.
It is, but, and this is important, this final rule really depends on the others.
How so?
Well, the source points out it's awful tough to give if you're broke.
Right.
If you're drowning in debt, haven't saved anything, don't have a budget.
And if you're hanging around people who aren't givers either. Rule 3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, they all tie together. It's tough to be generous if the foundations aren't there. The rules build on each other. It's a whole system.
Okay, so let's recap quickly. We've dived into these 5 rules. Get on a written budget. Get out of debt. Foster high-quality relationships. Save and invest diligently. And be generous.
And that common thread running through all of them is, well, it's personal responsibility, isn't it? Intentional choice. Taking control.
Yeah. And what's striking is how these aren't complex financial maneuvers. They're presented as simple, common-sense actions.
But transformative actions. The idea is they don't just help you make money, they equip you to be effective, in your work, for your family, to get that financial stress, the monkey off your back, the elephant out of the room, as the source says.
So for you listening, what does this all boil down to? The source keeps coming back to this really empowering idea. You get to decide today.
Right now, you can decide to change the habits, change the plan, or make a plan if you don't have one. Change who you spend time with, change your future.
It puts the power squarely back in your hands.
Which leads us to maybe the final question to leave you with. If building wealth isn't really about some magic formula or getting lucky or waiting for the government or the economy to fix things, if it really boils down to these 5 common sense decisions you can make starting today.
Then what's holding you back from making them?
Exactly. What's really holding you back?